Hello everyone, welcome back. So in this project, we're gonna build AI-powered water tracking app using FastAPI, LangChain, and Streamlit. So the goal was to help users track their daily water intake while getting intelligent feedback from AI assistant. So in this project, we're gonna build a backend with a fast API that logs water intake and stores it in a SQLite database. So then we have integrated that with a LangChain, that is an OpenAI, to generate a personalized hydration feedback based on how much water the user has consumed. So to make it user friendly, so we have designed a clean Streamlit dashboard where the users can log their intake, view their history, and even see the visual charts as well. So let's start building this project. All right, so let's start building our project. So first step, let's go and create empty folder for this project. I'll go here. Let me just go and create and name this folder as Euron water intake. Uh, Euron water tracker. Okay, Euron water tracker. All right, so let me just get into this particular folder, and right now it's completely blank. Okay, so in this project I'll be using a Conda to create an environment. So in case if you don't have Conda, just go and install it from the Chrome. You need to install Anaconda Navigator. So if you install Anaconda Navigator, so once you're done with Anaconda installation, you can just go and search your Anaconda prompt, and from here you can just create an environments, right? So in case if you are not familiar with Anaconda, you can just use Python venv module to create an environments. So if you're following along, so I'll be using a Conda to create an environment. So right now the folder is blank. Let me just go and open the VS Code in the same folder. So to do that, let me just open the Anaconda prompt. And let me just copy this path over here. And let's do cd into this and type code dot. So code dot basically opens the uh, VS Code in the same folder. Let me just expand that. All right, so here, so I have just opened the VS Code in the same folder in the Euron water tracker. So let me just go to terminal and click on new terminal. And here, let me just open the command prompt. Okay, so right now I'm inside the base environment. So let's create an environment. To create environment, I'll type conda create hyphen hyphen name, and the name of the environment I'll just give Euron AI tracker, Euron water tracker. Euron water tracker. And here let me just give the Python version. So I'll be using 3.10 for this project, and do enter. And let me just give is. All right, so now the next step, let's activate this environment. So right now I'm in the base environment. To activate, I'll just type here conda activate and the environment name. Okay, and the environment name I have given as Euron water tracker, and do enter. All right, so the next step, let me just add a very important file, that is .env, which help us to store the open API keys. So let me just type here .env, and inside the .env, let me just paste the open API key. I have the open API key. Let me just paste that. And before that, so even I need a database URL. will be storing a data inside the database as well, right? So we'll have the two keys. One is the database URL. So this will be my database URL, that is SQLite. So this is a default one, okay? SQLite, and the database URL I'll just give as water tracker db, water tracker dot db, water tracker dot db. And let me just paste this your open API key over here. Okay, so inside this .env, so we have two information. One is the open API key, and the next is the database URL, which is SQLite water tracker db. Okay, let me just copy and paste this and save. All right, so next is requirements.txt to install the dependencies for our project. requirements requirements dot txt. Okay, so I have the list of environments. Let me just copy and paste it. Fine. And let's install these dependencies. So make sure to just do the save, Control S. Okay, to install these dependencies, we need to type pip install -r. So pip install -r requirements.txt and do enter. So it's installing all the dependencies. So let's wait. So make sure you install these dependencies in the environment. Okay. So it will take few minutes. All right, so this is done. So the next step, let's create a folder. And here I'll just create a folder called src where I'll keep all my code files. So inside the src, the first the script we're going to write is for the logging. Okay, so I'll type here logger dot py. Okay, let me just set up the logging. So import logging, and here let me just type logging dot basic config basic config, and here I need to provide the file name. File name I'll just give as app.log. Next I need to provide the level, and the level will be logging dot info. So next the format. Here the format will be percentage. We'll have the time, ASCII time, string, and percentage. We'll have the level name. Uh, okay, ASCII time hyphen level name, and percentage message. Okay, so this will be our format to add the logs within the app.py. Next, let's define the method. So df log message, log underscore message, and this method will take a message and just log that information, that is logging dot info, and the message will be logged. Okay, similarly let's even add one more method for the error. So log error, so it will take the error here and will add the logging dot error, and we're gonna pass the error over here, error. All right, so this is the logging script. Okay, so where we are just setting up the logging process for a project. So it's a basic config, and the file name will be app.log, and the level is logging.info. This is what the format. So once we start running the project, this is the log information will be logged inside the app.log. So this is the two methods we have defined. One is the log message and the log error. All right, so next let me just create one more script. I'll just name this script as agent.py. Agent.py. Let me just all right, so next is agent.py. Okay, so let me just define this here. So first let me just write import os, and from LangChain OpenAI, import chat C's capital OpenAI, then from LangChain, the LangChain dot schema, import human message, and from dot env, import load.env over here. Okay, so here what we're doing, so we're importing all the necessary components here, right? So first we are importing OS, which basically help us to access the environment variables. So then we are importing the chat OpenAI, which is a LangChain wrapper for the OpenAI GPT model. Next we have the message, a human message, which is used to structure the prompts or the messages to the large language model. And finally we have the load.env, which basically help us to load the environment variable which are kept inside the .env here. Okay, next step is to load that API key. So for that we need to first uh, initialize, that is load.env, and here let's create a variable called OpenAI API key. So this will so I'll be storing this from os dot get env, and let me just get that from the .env file. So and the name of the variable is AI OpenAI API key. So this is what the name we have set inside the .env. All right. Okay. So next step is to initialize the large language model. So let me just create LLM, and here let me just call this chat OpenAI. So where I need to pass three things. Okay, one is the API key. So I'll just call this as API key. What is API key? It's open or API key. And the next I need to pass the model. So model is, I'll be using GPT-4. Next is temperature, and the temperature I'll set to 0.5. Okay, so this is just a randomness. So next let me just define a class here. So now let's define a water intake agent. Okay, so a water intake class. Okay, so which will basically keep track of that. So let me just write on. So class, I'll name this class as water, water intake agent. Okay, so this class basically help us to track and suggest the daily water intake. Okay, so the main core will add inside this particular class. So here let me just define the constructor. So def underscore underscore init underscore underscore, and here let me just pass the self. So self dot history. I'll explain. Okay, once I type I'll explain. So history, history, history. All right, and let me just define one more method. I'll just name this method as analyze analyze intake analyze intake. So it will take the self and intake ml, and here I need to provide a prompt. Here I'll providing the prompt. Let me just write on the prompt here. So you are a hydration, hydration assistant, the user has consumed uh, here I'll take that intake ml. User has consumed this many ml of water today. Provide hydration status and suggest if they need to drink more water. All right, so this will be my prompt, and let me just close this. And so I'll be getting a response from the LLM, respon response, and I'll be getting that from llm.invoke. Here I'll be invoking that prompt, right? So here I'll be using this human message, and here I need to pass the content, and that content is nothing but a prompt. Okay, and finally I'm going to return the response. return the response dot content. Fine. So here, so even let's test this. Okay. So let me just test this. Like if underscore underscore name underscore underscore is equal to underscore underscore main underscore underscore, and here I need to pass the I need to first call that is water intake agent, and here let me just pass the parameters. Like I need to pass the intake over here. Intake I'll pass 500 ml or 1500, and next I need to pass the feedback. So here basically I'll be getting a feedback from the agent after calling that analyze intake method, right? So this is what we need to pass. Okay, intake ml. So here feedback I'll be getting after invoking this response. So I'll just call that agent dot analyze intake, and I'll just pass that intake over here. Okay, and so let me just print that. Okay, so print hydration analyze, and here I'll be just pass that feedback. Okay, and save this. Fine, let me just test this script. Okay, if everything is working fine. So here if I just do python agent.py, yeah, it's inside the source, right? So I'll just type here python src slash agent.py. Okay, no LangChain, we have installed it. LangChain, no module. So what we have here, so LangChain OpenAI, LangChain underscore OpenAI import, and this is correct. Okay, let's try to install this. We need to install this OpenAI. Just a second. Let's install this. Pip install. Pip install LangChain. And LangChain OpenAI. All right, so now let rerun this. Yeah, so you can see I got an hydration analysis. So it's telling that your current hydration status is moderate. Correct, it's a moderate because the input have given us 1500 ml. So your current hydration status is moderate. The recommended daily water intake is about 2000 to 2500 ml for women, and 2500 to 3000 3700 ml for men. Okay, so based on current consumption, you should drink more water to meet the recommended daily intake. Fine. So now let's try to log this. We'll store this water intake. So if I just go and check, in log is not created. Okay. So even we can just store this information inside our SQLite. Okay, for the data storage. So let me just go and create a script called database.py. So let me just do that. So here inside the src, let me just create a new file. I'll just name this file as database dot py. Okay, so here first let me import SQLite, SQLite 3. Okay, and even let's import date time. So from date time, import date time. Okay, and let's give the DB name. So database name, I'll just name the database name as water intake DB. Even that's also defined inside the .env file, right? So I'll name this as water tracker dot db. All right, so now let's define the different methods. Okay, first to create tables, then we'll create a file to then we'll create a method to log the intake, then get the intake history as well. Okay, let's try to do that. So let me just define uh, create table. Just a second. So create tables, and here let me just define the all the connection parameter. So first is I need to set up the connection, that is SQLite. I'll just call that SQLite 3 and click on and dot connect, and I want to connect to the DB name. Okay, this is the database I want to connect it. So once we create a database, so let's set up the cursor, and the cursor will point. So cursor is basically a pointer. So let me just take that connection and create a cursor object. Okay, cursor. Fine. So first let me just create a table. So here, so cursor dot execute, and let me just give that uh, create table command. That is, let me just close this, execute create table, CREAT, create table. If not exist, I'll create a table called water intake, and here it will take uh, 4 columns. So first is the ID of the type integer, and even let's set this to a primary key with auto increment. Okay, so next is the user ID, and of the type text. Next, let's take the intake underscore ml of the type integer, and one last is the date. Okay, so date will be of text. Fine. Date time also can take it. Okay, fine. Let me just save this. Okay, so this is just for creation of table, and finally we need to commit this. That is so CNN connection dot commit. Okay, and even we need to close this connection dot close. All right, so the next let me just take the log intake method. One more method, let me just save this. Okay, fine. Let me define one more method. So def log intake. So it will take the user ID and intake ml. Okay, intake ml. And here, so let me just define the same thing, that is a connection equals to SQLite 3 dot connect. So connect to the database, that is the DB name which I have defined. Then the connection cursor, CURSOR cursor. So we will take that connection dot cursor. Okay, and here the log intake. Okay, so here we basically saving the information about the user ID and the amount of water they are intake. Okay, the intake amount. Okay, intake how much of water they have intake. Okay, so we are just taking that information. So here for that we need the information about the date also. I'll type here date today. Date today. So I'll take this date time dot today, and so we'll have the format. Let me just convert that into str frame. Okay, and the format for this will be percentage year. It's year, month, and day. Year, month, and percentage day. All right, so next cursor dot execute. So here let's do the insert into the table which we have created, that is a water intake. And here I want to do the insert for user ID and intake underscore ml, and the date. And what are the values? So values, let me just set. So values, so here right now I'll just give this question mark. Okay, because when we will try to add this when we set up the UI. Okay, so let me just set up some question marks here. Okay, and yeah, insert into this question mark. And finally we're going to write this, that is user ID. Correct. So first is user ID, then ml intake ml, and the date today. Okay, and finally we're gonna commit that, that is connection dot commit. And finally even will close this connection dot close. Fine. So similarly, let me just define one more. Let me just copy the same thing. Okay, and let's modify it. One last method, and this method will be get intake history. Okay. So get intake history. And here I just to pass the user ID. That's it. Okay, so get intake history, I'll pass the user ID. So this will remain same, the connection dot cursor, and here we don't need this now, date today. Okay, so no date today. So here we'll do a select instead of this. We're gonna write it select intake ml and date from water intake, water intake, where user id where user id is equal to question mark, and that I'm going to pass as user id, right? So I'll type here user id. All right, so next the fetch all, because this is the history, right? So here I'll just store that inside the records. I'll take the cursor dot fetch all, that's it. Okay, and connection dot close, and will not do commit. So here we'll have the close, and finally return the records. Fine. And here finally we need to call this create tables, okay, because basically we need to initialize the database. Okay, create tables. All right, so this is done. Let me just save this and run the script. Okay, just see if you have any errors. That is to run this Python, it's inside the src, Python src database.py. Okay, so you can see water tracker db dot created. Okay, so we have the name and the we have water intake, we have id, user id, intake, and the date. Okay, so it's absolutely working fine. All right, so the next is API. We need to set up our backend API. Let me just do that quickly. So let me just go and create a new file inside the src, and I'll just name this as api.py. api.py. All right, so here first is all about importing it. That is from FastAPI, import FastAPI. Then from Pydantic, import base model, then now let's import this agent, database, as well as logger. So from src dot agent, import the method we have defined there is water intake agent. Next, from src dot database, import log intake, as well as get intake history. Okay, and from src dot logger, import log message. All right, so here we have just imported all the necessary modules which we have defined here. Okay, so now let me just initialize, that is app fast API. Let me just initialize this, and even let's initialize this agent water intake also. Okay, so agent is equal to water intake agent. Fine, so I've just created an object of called agent, and we are just inside this particular water intake agent. So inside the agent we have just initialized this water intake. Okay, equals to. All right, so here using that identity, there is a base model. Okay, let's try to inherit the properties of the water intake. Okay, so here we'll define a class called water intake request. Okay, water intake request, and this will inherit the properties from the base model. Okay, so we call this as a pydantic. Okay, and here it's basically how the user will pass the information. Okay, user id of the type str, and here the intake ml, of the type integer. All right. So now finally we need to define the routes. So first app dot post request, and here let me just create a route called log hyphen intake intake. And so let me just define the method async def log water intake, and here let me just call this request. So the request will be for the water intake request. Okay, water intake request, the class which I've defined on the top. Okay, and here, so let's create a variable called log intake. Sorry, I'm just calling that log intake. Okay, so where I need to provide from the user, I'll be taking the user ID. So request dot user ID user user ID and request dot intake ml, and let's create a variable called analyze, and here I'll take the agent dot analyze intake, which we have defined the method, and I need to pass the request dot intake ml request dot. So here we're just connecting the dots. Okay, that's it, whatever we have just executed separately. And finally we go log the message. So log message, and the message will be like this. Okay, like a user request dot user id logged request dot intake ml. Okay, so this will be my message, and finally we're gonna return a message, return the message, and the message will be like water intake logged successfully, logged successfully. And even the analysis also, analysis, analysis, and that I'll be getting it from analysis. All right, so this is for the slash intake. Now even we have to define for the LYSS. Okay, so even we need to define this route for the history also, right? So let me just write down that. So at the rate app dot get, this will be get request, and here I need to pass the slash history slash user ID user underscore ID async. Let me create a method called get water history, okay. So if it will take the user ID of the type str. So here we need to just retrieve all the information about the user water intake history, correct? Let me just create a variable called history, and so I'll just get that get intake history, and I'll pass the user ID. That's it, user underscore ID. So user underscore ID, and finally we're gonna return that. So return the user ID user underscore id as user underscore id, and finally we'll have history history is history. Fine. So this is our app API. Okay, let me just save this. Fine. And let me just test this. Okay, if everything is working fine. All right. So to test this, so let me just write on that is uvcon src. Within the src, we have API dot app hyphen reload. Okay, let me run this. All right, so it's working. Let me just go and follow. Okay, so route we have not defined, so slash docs. Okay, so here we got this two things. Okay, so one is two routes. One is the log water intake, and the second is history. Okay, let's test this. So let me just click onto this post request, try it out. And here the user ID, let me just give some user ID like user underscore 123. Okay, and the water intake ML, I'll just give 2000. Fine, and let me click on execute. So here you can see I'm getting a message. So water intake logged successfully, and the analyzer I'm getting. So your hydration status is good as you have already consumed uh 2000 ml of water today, and which is recommended daily intake for the average adult. Okay, so all the basic information. So even if I just go and check it inside our database, so that is a water tracker.db. So here, okay, so here we'll try to do that from the front end. Okay, so it's not logged directly here. Okay, fine. So but I can see the information, that is I need to just save that in the db. Fine. So all right, so this route is working. Next is the history. Let me just I need to add only the user history now. So already has consumed 2000, right? So let me just type the same user, that is user underscore 123. Is it user under 123? Yeah, user underscore 123. No such column called user. Okay, I've made some mistake here. Can you see? So let me just cancel this out. Control C. Let me just go to app.py. So select star. Okay, I made some mistake here. Database.py. Yeah, you can see it's user underscore ID. Sorry, user underscore ID. And save this. Control S. And let me just rerun. So if I just type this once again, that is user underscore 123. Again, I'll add it here 2000. And let me just test this now. Okay, so this is working. So next is history. Try this out, and here it is user underscore 123 and execute. Yeah, I can see because I have logged two times. Okay, 2000 2000. I just wanted to verify that. And see user history. So it's basically able to track it, right? So user ID is 123 and the history is 2000 ml and again 2000 ml, and you can see the date as well, right? So it's absolutely working fine. All right. So the next is let's add the front end part. So let me just name that as dashboard.py. Here, let me just go. We'll add the front end. Okay. So let me just go and create. I'm just creating the outside, that is dashboard. Dashboard.py. Fine. So here, so first, of course, we need this. Okay, let me just close this server. Control C. So first, let's import Streamlit. Streamlit as st. Okay, make sure you install this Streamlit. I think we have installed. Let me just verify that. So let me just do pip install. All right. So here, so first install the Streamlit as st. So next import pandas as pd. Then from pandas as pd. Why it's taking full? All right. So next from datetime, import datetime, and from src.agent, import a water intake agent, and from src.database. So this is the place where we'll be storing directly from the UI. Okay, so import log intake as well as get intake history. Okay, so initially first let's check if the user has started tracking or not. Okay, so for that let me just add the if condition. So if tracker started or not in st dot session session state then st dot session state dot tracker started equals set to false. Okay, here we are just checking whether the user has started tracking or not. Okay, it's set to false. All right, let me just save this. Okay, so here we need to have the two section. One is the just a welcome section. Okay, then we can have the tracker dashboard. So let's add the welcome session. So here let me just write down the comment. Welcome section. Directly we can't add the tracker, right? So we can add some headings here. Okay, so if not st dot session state dot tracker started. Okay, so then set the title, so st dot title, and the title I'll just give here welcome to AI water tracker, welcome to AI water tracker. Okay, and even we can add some markdown also, like st dot markdown. So let me just write down like track your daily hydration with help of an AI assistant, and log your intake some paragraph. Okay, so get smart feedback and stay hydrated. Stay healthy. Okay, stay healthy effortlessly. All right, so here let me just add the button inside this. So if st dot button, like start the tracker. Okay, so this is the way we're gonna display the tracker. Okay, so if st dot button, so here we're gonna mention like start tracking. Okay, start tracking. So that is st dot session state dot tracker started is set to true now. Initially it was false. Okay, true. And st dot experimental rerun. Okay, control S. All right, so this is just a welcome section. Okay, so here we have just added the basic information. So now let's try to add the tracker dashboard. So let me just have the code for that. Okay, instead of typing, so that will come under the else section. Okay, because right now we have just started with this if condition. So let's try to add the else part. All right, so here let me just paste it. Make sure it's in the same level. Okay, let's control S. Okay, so here else. Okay, so here, so we are just now we are running the dashboard. Okay, that is as soon as the button is clicked. Okay, so like start tracking. So here we have AI water tracker dashboard. Okay, we have the sidebar like information like log your water intake. So where we gonna ask the user to enter the user ID and the intake ML. Okay, so this will basically keep on updating like how much of water they are taking it. Okay, so next once they are done with the submit. Okay, so here that information will be logged. That is xt dot success, and here you can see we are just calling this object. Okay, there is a water intake agent, and we are just analyzing, we are just calling that model analyze intake, and we are just giving the feedback. Okay, and here this is the history section. Okay, this is all about the intake, and here we have the history section. So we are just getting the information in, and showing in the form of pandas data frame. That's it. Okay, let me just run this and let's test this. Control S. The first is we need to run the server, correct? And we need two terminals. Let me open one more here and do conda activate. Conda activate this environment. Okay, in the first environment, let me just run this UVCon. So make sure run this server before running the Streamlit app. Okay, and let me just go and test this once again, whether it's running docs. Okay, so it's there, fine. So now let me just run the Streamlit app. So let me go to the another terminal, and to run this Streamlit, so I need to type Streamlit run dashboard. The name of the file is dashboard.py. Let me allow this. Yeah, so you can see, so I'm getting a welcome message that is welcome to AI water tracker. So track your daily hydration with help of AI assistant, log your intake, get smart feedback and stay healthy. That's what we have added here on the top. In case you want to add some other information, you can just add it over here. All right, so first let me click on start tracking. Okay, so now we are getting into the dashboard. Okay, and here so based on the user ID, this is what we have. So in case if I just try to add another 500 ml and click on submit, so this is logging the information. Okay, so as soon as this is being logged, you can see I'll get a current update. Can you see here? So earlier, in the API, I updated this 2000 ml. Again, I've just updated 2000 ml. Then again, I have just updated on 500. This is what I'm getting it. Fine. So in case if you're adding some new user, okay, let me just add here Imran, and here let me just take 500 and submit. Okay, now logged 500 ml for the Imran. Okay, can see automatically it added that water intake history, and it's showing already 500 ml. And here I'm getting the AI feedback that is based on the average recommendation. Same story here. Okay, so aim for 1.5 liters. Okay, so now let me just add 600, 700 and click on submit. So now again I should see for the Imran it is 5000, sorry, 500 plus 700. Can you see? And even I can see the chart over here. Okay, so if you want to add some other user like test 1 700 submit, so it will be logged 700 for test 1, and same information you can just track over here. All right, so here let me just go here, and if I just go to my water tracker.db water intake, you can see all the users as well as whatever I'm just adding over there. Okay, I'm able to see that here. Okay, so yes, so this is absolutely working fine. So I hope you have understood and you have enjoyed it building this project. Okay, so this is a simple project. Okay, so where we have just understood the usage of how the things are working in terms of writing the code. Okay, the flow. Okay, you can just take up this to next level by adding some features like sending an alert message. Okay, and all those things. So yes, keep learning, keep growing. Okay, so all the best. So see you soon in the next new project.